Welcome back, everyone. So let's solve a problem on circular queue. The previous one was linear queue. I hope you guys have seen it. This is circular queue. So let's solve this problem. It says a cafe wants to manage its to-go orders using a circular queue. The program is written using object-oriented programming to manage these orders. The customers have input their order to the cafe's website. The customer's record, which is the order ID, is saved in a text file called queue.text. So this is the class order records. This stores the customer's record. It only stores the customer record. Okay. And I told you that the manner of storage determines if it is queue or stack, the process. Do you understand? But this class just stores the record. This is the order record. Order ID is a what? Is a string and not an integer. The constructor initializes order ID to its what? Parameter value. That means there is a parameter passed. Get ID returns the customer's ID. Write program code to declare the class order ID is constructor and what? And get method. Do not declare other methods. Oh, there's no other method. I should have deleted this. Use of programming language, must be private, and make sure you write comment. And how many marks is it? 3 marks. So let's write that now. Okay, you guys have written it in your test, so let me write mine. So this is what? This is the class order records, isn't it? And what is the next thing? The constructor, right? Which is what? The def init. And does it require a parameter? Yes, order ID. So I have self order ID or order whatever. So the parameter here is what? Is self dot order. The attribute rather is equal to what? Order. It has initialized the attribute to its parameter value. So this parameter, this attribute, it's now the variable that will be used in the class. So anything you want to write in the class that needs this is the variable you will use. You don't have to create a new variable. So that was the mistake most students made in their test. So they were creating a new variable for the operation in the stack. Why they want to access the same order ID, which is wrong. So the attributes of a class are like the variables used in the class. Is that understood? So let me say I like the variables so that you understand how to use the attributes anytime you need them. Okay, good. So we are done with that, right? What is the next thing? The method get ID. So I have this as def get ID. Also what? Self, isn't it? What do I return? Self dot order ID, isn't it? And this is a what? Is a string. And that is all for the 3 marks. I think that is very simple. Right? Good. Now the next question states, the class order queue manages the collection of order records in a queue. Can you see? So it manages how the data are saving what? Order record. Okay? So that is the function of order queue. So we have order queue. These are the attributes of order queue, isn't it? The attributes are what? Queue head, queue tail, the array, and elements, which these are the description. Head points to the first element, tail points to the last. This is the array used to implement the queue, and this saves the number of items in the queue because we're using a circular queue, isn't it? Now, constructor, it says initializes head pointer to -1, queue head to -1, queue tail to -1, elements to 0, all 6 elements in queue array to order records of -1. Does it mention anything about parameter value? That means no parameter is passed. Is that understood? If you take a look at the previous question, it states initialize to its parameter value. That means a parameter is passed. Then you now initialize this attribute to that parameter value. But this question does not say initialize to its parameter value. It only says initialize QH to -1, Qtail to -1, elements to 0, and all the 6 elements in the array to the object -1. It does not say parameter value. So you don't have to pass any parameter because no parameter is required. Is this understood? Good. So if you take a look at this, then I have to write class. That should be what? What's the name of the class? Order queue. Order queue. Okay. Does this question says this have to do with inheritance? Some of you are passing other records as what? As a parameter to this class. The class never said, this question never says it's inheriting anything. So why are you doing that? Okay, good. Now, then the constructor, def init, then self. I told you, self is compulsory, isn't it? Whether there is parameter or not, isn't it? Good. Okay, good. So what is the first attribute? The first attribute is QH, right? So that will be self dot, it must be private, don't forget, according to the question, QH is equal to what? -1. That was what the question says. It says initialize QL to what? -1. Then Qtail to -1. Self dot Qtail. Oh, sorry. Self dot Qtail also equals to what? -1. The next one says initialize what? Elements to 0. So self dot elements is equal to 0. It also initialize all the 6 elements. Some students thought this was 5 because this is 0 to 5. 0 to 5, of course, like I told you, is what? Is 6. So the question says initializes all the 6 elements in the key array to order record of what? -1. So that means we have to create an object of order record and pass what? -1 as a string, not as an integer. Is that understood? Because this class expects a string as what? As a parameter, not an integer. So if you write order record of -1 as an integer, it is wrong. It should be a string. Is that understood? So that was why the question says order record of what? Of -1. So that implies that this should be what? Self dot q array is equal to the items in the Q array, right? It should be what? Order records of -1. How many? Order record of -1 should be a round bracket because it's a class, right? Yeah, it should be a round bracket. It's a class. Order record of -1. And how many elements is it? 6. It's as simple as that. And if you like, you can use a for loop to put those values. So that value is in the array. It is just like writing -1 times 6. Is that understood? Okay. But because an object is required, this array saves objects. That was why it said Q array of order records. And order record is what? Is an object type, isn't it? Not just an integer or a string. So that was why you have this. Is that understood? So these are the variables you will need in this class. Okay? The attributes are the variables you need in that class. Good. The next thing is, how many marks is that? 5. We are not done. This should be what? This should be integer. This should be integer. This should also be what? Integer. Why? Is this supposed to be string? It should be what? An array of order records. Isn't it? And that is all. And that is 5 marks. So cheap. And that is so easy. Now, the next question states, the enqueue method. If you are confused about the enqueue, go back to the table. You will see the enqueue as part of the class. Now, the enqueue method takes an object data of type order record to insert into the queue as a what? Parameter. That means this method takes an object as a parameter. And that object is of type what? Order record. So that means you have to write def n q self. Why are you using self? So you can access the attributes in the what? In the constructor, isn't it? Then it takes what? An object as a parameter. Just write any variable name. But you know that when you are passing the argument, it must be what? An object. Is that understood? Is that understood, everyone? So that value, when you pass that value as an argument, it must be an object. It's as simple as this. A lot of students forget to write the self. Now, if the queue is not full, how do you know if the queue is not full? This is a circular queue. We use the what? The number of elements, isn't it? And if it is not full, it means the number of elements should be less than 6, because there are supposed to be 6 elements in the queue. So if the element is less than 6, that means it is not full. Is that understood? So that means you have to write if self dot elements is less than 6. Because a lot of students forget or did not remember to pass self. They only pass the parameter. While they were writing their code, probably their IDE have underlined this. Then they were like, oh, then they deleted this and created another variable. Do you know this is another variable? This is not the attribute. Is that understood? This is something else entirely. So when you now call back your code, it does not access these attributes. And whatever you have written is wrong. Is that understood? Good. So if self.elements is less than 6, that means it is not full. It inserts the parameter in the what? In the queue. It inserts the parameter in the queue. And where is the queue? The queue is the array that is used to implement the queue, right? That means you add the parameter to the queue. So where is the parameter added to? Is it at the position of tail pointer or the head pointer? Position of what? Of the queue tail, isn't it?
Yeah, the tail pointer isn't it +1?
But you have to increment it before adding. Is that understood? Because tail pointer points to the what? To the last element. So you have to increment it so that it now points to a new space before you add. If you don't do that, then that line is wrong. Is incorrect. Is that understood? So we have to write self dot qtail plus equal to 1. Then we now have self dot, then we put it in the array, isn't it? Dot q array of what? Self dot qtail is equal to what? Value. Is this understood, everyone? Then the value has been inserted into the q array. Is that understood, everyone? Now, after doing this, what is the next thing? You have to update your what? Your appropriate pointers, right? So what you have to qt has been updated. When you are adding to the queue, you have to check the status of the head pointer to check if it's not the first element or not, right? So you have to check if self dot qhead is equal to what? -1. If it is -1, then you do what? You set it to 0 is equal to 0. Understood? Then after doing this, what do you return? True. Then you return true. Understood? Good. It's as simple as that. But what if the queue is full? If you like, write a else. If you like, don't write a else. It's still the same thing. Because once it returns, it quits the program. Okay, good. Now, it returns what? False. Then return false. Understood? So write program for a queue which is 4 mark that has been done. Bonus 4 mark. Understood? Now I forgot, when you add to a queue, the number of elements should increase, isn't it? So you have to write self self dot elements plus equal to 1 because the number of elements must increase when you add to a queue. Understood? Yeah, thank you for that correction. Now the next thing is the next question, which is now the dequeue. The dequeue method returns false if the queue is empty, isn't it? So how do you know if the queue is empty? Def dequeue. That is self. The queue is empty if what? Self dot elements is equal to 0. There it is empty, isn't it? What does it return? Return false as a string, isn't it? According to the question. Is that understood? Returns false. Else, if the queue is not empty, that is the else, it returns the next item in the queue. And that will be the what? The item at the position of what? The edge pointer. The item at the position of the edge pointer. Because you want to dequeue, you should dequeue the item at the position of the edge pointer. That was what we did in the previous classes, isn't it? So that means you have to keep that a variable first. Variable is equal to self dot queue array, then self dot queue edge, isn't it? Yeah, it should be a square bracket and not a round bracket. Is that understood? So the value has been saved to what? To a variable. Understood? Now, after saving that value to a variable, what do? You now increment what? You decrement the head pointer, right? Is it increment or decrement? To point to the next one, right? So increment. So self dot queue edge plus equal to 1. Then after doing this, you decrement the number of elements, right? Because you've taken out of the queue. So number of elements should what? Should decrease. So that will be self dot what? Dot elements minus equal to 1, isn't it? Then after doing that, what is the next thing? Then you will now return what? No, you don't return yet. You check the status of the tail pointer because this is a circular queue. Is that understood? To check if it is at the last index, isn't it? Then you have to write that if self dot tail q tail is equal to what? 6 is equal to the last index. After you have dequeued the first thing, then you what? You make it the first index, isn't it? Then write self dot q tail is equal to what? 0. Oh, 5, not 6. Index. Index is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's pointing to the last element, not the next available space. So it will be equal to 5. Okay. So it's 5 and not 6 because it points to the last index, isn't it? So then what do you do after that? Then you now return what? Return var after this. So you can even return in the if statement, in that else statement, and that is all, everyone. Is this understood? Good. Now the next question. Question 6 says, the value to be stored in the queue are the customer records to be read from the text file. So this is read from the text file. Some ID values are erroneous. Thus, the valid customer record needs to be stored only in the what? In the queue. So you don't store the erroneous value to the queue, only the valid value. The value customer record is 7 characters long. You don't need to check if it is 7 characters. It's already said it is what? 7 characters. So you don't need to check if it is 7 characters. The first 6 characters are what? The digits, while the 7th one is what? Is a check digit. The check digit is calculated from the first 6 digits using the algorithm. Multiply the digits in position by this, calculate this, divide this. by the time you read this, some students might read this 4, 5, 6 times and will not understand. Do you know? Some students will read this several times and will not understand. They will continue to read and may not understand. It's fine if you read it and you don't understand. It's fine. Don't panic. Just go to the example. For every question in this form, Cambridge will always give you an example. So if you read for the first and second and you don't understand, don't waste your time on it. Just go to the example. The example will help you to understand. Is that understood? So when you get to the example, data is 954,123. So you can see 954,123. So the characters are positioned as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if you look at multiplier, that means for character 0, multiplier is 3. 1, 4, 2, 3, 3, 4. Can you see the trend? Then product, 3 times 9, 27, 5 times 4, 20. So you can easily understand from here. The product is multiplier times digits. Multiplier times digits. When you are done, what is the next thing? The sum of products. All these products are added together. Am I typing yet? No, I'm still trying to read and understand the question. What is the sum? 81. 81 was now divided by 7. Of course, you don't have a calculator to confirm, isn't it? But the question says when this 81 was divided by 7, the answer is what? 8. Remainder 4. The question has given you the answer, so you don't have to worry about that. Is that understood? 8, remainder 4. It now says the check digit is 4. That means we are interested on the remainder, not the whole number. Is that understood? Our interest is on the what? Remainder, not the whole number. It now states that the data including check digits. The data was 954,123. It should now be 954,123,4. So the last digit is now the check digit. The order ID is valid if the 7th character, which is this 4, matches the check digit for that data. For example, the data 954,123,5 is invalid, right? Because the last character is what? 5. But it should be 4 from our calculation, then it's invalid. Now, the method Q validation in the order Q class. That means we have to go back to the order Q class where exactly we are. It states, takes the order ID as a what? Do I have to worry about the calculation I just read? No, just type what you see now. Understood? Type what you see. So it says DEF order Q validation self. Actually, self is not compulsory, but you don't know, just type it. Why is it not compulsory in this case? Because this question does not access any of the attributes. Is that understood? So it's actually not compulsory in this case. This method, it won't change anything. Because if you look at this question, everything you've read in this description has nothing it's referring to the attributes. It's not referring to the array. It's not referring to the Q head or Q tail. So it's not necessary. But if you do, it changes nothing as well. But if you are not sure, please do what? Put it there. Is that understood? If you are not sure, put it there. Now, it takes what? Order ID as what? As a parameter. Order. Order ID isn't an object, a numeric value. Is a what? It's a string. You go back to the question. It is already in the question. Order ID is a string. So if you forget or you are not sure, go back to the question because order ID is a string. Now, like we say, order ID is a string. Don't forget. Now, that means the order ID you pass must be a what? Must be a string. Is that understood? Now, that is exactly what I have done. Is a string. It now says calculate the validity of the what? Of the order. Where is the calculation? This is the calculation, right? So don't forget, it says character position. From that string, that means access what? each character from each position. So this table has told you are supposed to take each character, not to convert everything as a whole to an integer. So it is described in this table. So that was why I told you, pay more attention to the example if you think you don't understand the text. Is that understood? It says character push, that is character at each position. But character at each position is still a what? It's still a string, isn't it? It is not yet an integer. So that means to do this, I need to multiply the first character at 0 position by what? By 3, isn't it? So that means that I can unpack that string. I've taught you how to unpack strings, right? Unpacking string. So I can write that first is equal to order 0. This is the first character. That is the character at the first position. Is that understood? So because it's still a string, I now convert to what? To an integer. Not collectively order ID to an integer, but each of them. Because I need to multiply each of them, not the collective numeric value. Is that understood? So this is the first one. So I can now write for how many of them? For the 6 of them. Can continue to write. Yeah, that's 7 of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because it's 7 character long. So let me call this second. Okay, we need it actually. Third, fourth, fifth. If you like, put it now. If you like, don't put it now. It's still the same thing. 6. You don't have to spell it in full. So don't forget to change it as well. I remember a student copied this and did not change all this 0. Yeah. Then we'll now calculate what? The sum. According to this, it says the sum of products. That is, you multiply each of them by the multiplier and then do what? Add together. So that should be, then you write that sum is equal to, it's even simple, 27. What is 27? 3 times 9. And 9 is at what? Character 0, isn't it? Character position 0. So that should be 4 multiplied by 3, isn't it? Good. So don't forget to put it in the bracket to avoid confusion. Then plus what? Second multiplied by what? 4. Then plus what? Then that continues. So let me do this. Now second, then this should be what? Third. And this should be what? Fourth. This should be what? Fifth. And this should be what? Sixth. The 7th, is it part of it? No, that is the check digit, isn't it? So this is the sum. Is that understood? Good. If you go back to the question, it says that character at position 0 is the first digit. It is multiplied by 3. So after finding the sum, what is the next thing? You divide by what? 7 to find the remainder. And what is the remainder? Is it floor division or modulo? Modulo. Okay. So that should be remainder is equal to sum modulo 7. Is that understood? So it is now this remainder that should be equal to the what? To the 7th character, isn't it? According to this question. The remainder should be equal to the 7th character. Is that understood? Good. So the 7th character must match the check digit, which is down the remainder. So that implies that if the remainder is equal to what? 7. Is this understood? So that was why I converted 7 initially to integer. Or if you did not convert it initially, don't forget to convert it to integer while comparing. A lot of students forget to convert to integer. They just said if remainder is equal to order 6 only. They forgot to compare to integer, to convert to integer. If it is equal, what does the question say? Return what? So calculate the validity. We have done that now. Returns valid if the order is valid, isn't it? So it is equal, then you return valid. Valid. So else, what do you return? Invalid. Invalid. Understood, everyone? So that is the end of that question. Very easy and very simple. That is just 6 marks. Then question D, where the issue is. This is the main question that combines the two classes. It says, write the main program code. The main program code. Main. This is also outside of the class, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what? Declare the array phi array. Is it global array?
No.
That's a local array. Just write phi array. That's all. Read all the other ID from the text file and save them in the. Just read everything and save in the array. So you use try with open. So here I save it as string.text. Strings.text on my computer as phi. Then that should be for line in what? In phi. Then that should be what? Line is equal to line dot strip. A lot of students forgot that. Because of the special character. A lot of students forgot that to strip. Before you now write what? The phi array dot append. What are you appending? The stripped line. Is that understood? Then except exception as error. Okay. Then print the error. Is this understood, everyone? Understood? Don't forget to strip because of the special character. So after doing this, what is the next thing? We have read everything. That is all. Create an instance of order queue with the identifier what? DQ. After doing that, then you write DQ is equal to what? Order queue with the brackets. Now that's what? An object. A lot of students forgot that bracket. Isn't it? Good. Now the next thing now says validate each order ID saved in what? Phi array. Each of them validate. That means you need a for loop for the each, right? In the what? In the phi array. So that should be for order in file array to take each value in the array. Is that understood? What are you supposed to do with each value? Validate it. To validate, what function are you going to call? The queue validation. From what class? Order queue class. Is the order queue class object created? Yes. With what handler? The queue. So are you supposed to create another object? No. Is that understood? Then that should be what? The queue dot queue validation. Then you pass what? The order as a parameter. Is that understood? Now, this should return something, isn't it? So it will return valid or what? Invalid. So let me call it as status is equal to. Is that understood? It now says create an instance of order records for each. That is, you create one instance for one, another instance for another, not one instance for everything. Do you guys understand? It says create an instance of order record for each valid order ID. That is, for every valid order, create instance for each of them. That means you have to do it in the for loop. Is that understood? So, and that is if it's what? If it is valid. And how will you know if it's valid? If status returns what? Valid. So if status is equal to what? Valid. Is that understood? Then you now create what? Instance for that order ID. Instance is instance of what? Order records, right? Order records. Order record requires how many arguments? One, which is a what? A string. And what is that string? The order ID, isn't it? Which is now the order. Is that understood? This is exactly what the question says. And enqueue each instance in the what? So what will you use to enqueue? The enqueue method. Where is the enqueue method? In the class order queue. Have you created an instance of the class order queue? Yes, which is what? The queue. Then you now write that the queue dot what? Enqueue. Yeah, remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. Yeah, thank you. Then let's continue with that video. So how many parameters does it require? One. Enqueue rather. It requires one parameter of what type? Order object type, isn't it? So that means don't forget that you have to pass that instance now, not the order record. A lot of students pass order record without creating the instance. Is that understood? Now, the next now says enqueue each. We've done that, right? So we've enqueued each instance. So the question now says output a suitable message whether or not it was added. That means if it was added, add. If it was not added, add. But there will be two instances if it was not added, do you know? If the queue is full and if that order ID is invalid. Do you know? There will be two conditions where it will not add. So you must consider both. That's why the question says whether or not. It does not say if it is full or not full. It just says whether or not it was not added. Because if it is invalid, it will still not add. You have to output that as well.
It's a different method.
The same method. The same method. Don't forget we wrote if status is valid, right? Now, if status, don't forget when you call enqueue, enqueue will return something. Do you know? It returns a boolean, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can you remember? Enqueue returns a boolean. If you go back, enqueue actually returns a true or what? False. If it's as, it returns a true. If the queue is full, it returns a what? A false, isn't it? So that means you have to save the value returned by enqueue in what? In a variable. And write if value is equal to true, print value added successfully. Okay, then else print. Why will it return an else? The queue is what? Is full, isn't it? It return what? A false if the queue is full, isn't it? So that is if the status is valid. What if the status is not valid? Will it still add to the queue?
No.
No, you have to consider that as well. It's part of the whether or not. Is that understood? Then you have to come down and write else. That is if it returns what? An invalid. Then you print the order ID is invalid. Is that understood, everyone? And that is all. That is just 5 marks. That is all. So this is the only most difficult part of the question because you are combining two classes here. And even if you are losing, you should not lose even all the 5 marks. You should only lose maybe 2 or 3 marks. And you shouldn't lose any mark above because others are easier. And the next question. The cafe manager wants to get the values from the database to process the orders. Write program code to amend the program to prompt the user for the number of records to fetch. So let's prompt for the number of records to fetch. So that will be user is equal to integer input, enter the number of records to fetch. Understood? It now says output the order ID of each record from where? Is it from the array? A lot of students outputted from the file array instead of from the queue. How do you output from the queue? You have to use the queue. That's how to output from the queue, isn't it? Then the queue. And if you use the queue, will it return something? Okay, let's use the queue. The queue is from where? Do you know it's from a class? It's from a class what? Order queue. And it has already been instantiated here, isn't it? So that means it will be DQ dot what? DQ. Any parameter? No. Will it return anything? Yes. It returns either a false or the value, isn't it? So that means value is equal to DQ dot DQ. Do you guys understand that? Okay, good. But before you use this, don't forget it says output the order of each, that is the number, from the number the person, if the person wants 5, it should output 5. That means we need a for loop for each of the, for the range of the input the person has inputted for us, isn't it? So that means I need for num in range of what? Of user. It's already there. Is that understood? So value can return a false or the value. So now write if value is equal to false. Don't forget the false is a string, isn't it? So you print. Why would you return the false? The queue is what? Empty. That was the reason why it will return a false, isn't it? If you can still remember, if you go back, the queue will return a false if it is what? Empty. Understood? Good. Then else, it returns the value, isn't it? And so that the value should now be outputted in this format. Customer wants order, isn't it? Order ID. That will be print the format customer. How would I get 1? That will be num plus 1. Wants order, okay, order ID, isn't it? Order ID is the order ID. Where will I get the order ID from? That will be the value returned, right? Is the value returned the order ID? Is an object. Don't forget, the queue returns an object. You return it from the queue array, right? And the queue array only contains what? Object. But I need the real value. So where did I get the value from? The get ID. So you go back to the question if you have forgotten the get ID. That will be value dot get ID. And that is all, everyone. The only difficult or stressful part of the question is the last 2 questions. Other questions are easier. And the last 2 questions, if you are calm, you get it. You will get it. Now, we are done, right? This is the end. Then you call your main program, right? Then you run your code. Is this understood? Can you see? So the question states that you should run your input with a what? With a 7 as input. So 7 as input. Enter. That is all, everyone. It's as easy as this. So this, you end the mark for this screenshot.